Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for chartsandmarkets.com. He's speaking to us from snowy but beautiful Vancouver. Welcome to New Year's Eve.
Yeah, here we are, Jim. It is New Year's Eve day, and it is bright and sunny on snow from the other day in Vancouver, which we don't often see in the lower parts of the city. Yeah, the higher parts you can get snow, up at the 2,000-foot elevation. But it's attractive to look at, not pleasant to walk on because it's quite slippery. And I no longer ski, so there we are.
Yeah, the local ski hills already have 6 feet of snow, over 2 meters.
Yeah.
Wow, beautiful.
It's been a terrific start to the ski season.
And to end off the year and looking ahead to the new year, we love to answer listener questions. Our first one comes from Michael, and Michael emails us saying, my best New Year wishes to Jim, Bob, and all the contributors and listeners at HowStreet.com. Jim, as in past years, you have provided your listeners throughout 2021 with very informative and outstanding podcasts, and your imitations of Sean Connery are also outstanding. Robert, I have never witnessed such optimism in the markets like I've witnessed this past year. I suppose valuations don't matter until they do. Will markets finally revert to the mean in 2022 and possibly overshoot to the downside?
Yeah, and also it's very good to acknowledge the contributions from Sean Connery. We always enjoy you through our special connections. Yeah, the markets are crazy, but I was just talking to my colleague Ross Clark a little earlier, and we're looking for change. I mean, in this business, you look for change, and the only thing that looks interesting at the moment is the small cap stocks, which usually outperform into early January, and we'll just see how they do. But as I said to Ross, looking around, there's not enough change in anything going on to write a specific article on. So we're just going to look at the bigger picture here and note that often into early January can be positive for the overall markets, within which oftentimes the small caps can outperform S&P. The markets are vulnerable, and mainly because of incredible elevation and an incredible one-way street going on out there. So, yeah, thanks for your kind questions, Michael.
Also, from Michael, in terms of taking cover from a potential 2022 market crash, would gold bullion, the U.S. dollar, and maybe a few short positions be in order?
On the short positions, Michael, we would wait until S&P or something that really takes out a recent important low. One can discuss bear markets, but you won't want to take the strategy or the tactics until you see a sign of weakness. That's what my view is here now. Just wait and see when some key levels are taken out.
Also from Michael, an important update, Zero Hedge headline, Nancy Pelosi buys millions in call options in Google, Micron, Roblox, Salesforce, and Disney, Bob, is this a buy signal or a contrarian indicator, or is this the Pelosi put?
I like that style. I saw that headline, and I know that Pelosi and her husband have made a lot of money, and particularly, not so many months ago, had a very good long position. And but this one now, I looked at that and I thought the same thing. Is this being overconfident? Is this identifying with the main trend in the market and just thinking, participating and as also said, oftentimes into the first week in January can be positive. So, hey, let's say it could be contrarian, and politically, I would be delighted if it was contrarian to see that couple get stiffed by a bad trade. So we'll watch and see what happens.
And of course, the Sean Connery connection became even more secure this year after my wife purchased me a lairdship in Scotland. I now own 1 square foot of a Scottish wildlife preserve near the island of Mull. Well, currently it's 13 Celsius with a 28-kilometer wind from the northwest. I have an app that lets me actually watch a video of it. It's a moor. It's just basically in Canada we call it a swamp.
It would be better, I think, having a square foot of a single malt distillery.
And I know exactly which square foot I would buy.
On the Isle of Ilia or whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know. Well, maybe I'll get a second lairdship.
There you go.
We have a question from Kathleen. And Kathleen writes us, Happy New Year's, Bob and Jim. Thanks so much for the great commentaries and best wishes for the new year. And to all my fellow listeners at Talk Digital Network, it seems that the Santa Claus rally was somewhat late this year and hardly eventful. Elvis's sentimental song, It's a Blue Christmas. Oh, I love that song.
Yeah.
Comes to mind in regard to this year-end market action. Despite the fact that this was a good year for stocks, I know several investors who are greatly disappointed that the market hasn't raced a lot higher into the year-end and take it as a possible warning. Bob, can we expect liquidity problems by March and the sudden appearance of the margin clerks? I know they're your best buddies. A growing number of analysts are suggesting that March 2022 may be a repeat of March 2020.
Yeah, Kathleen, you've got some good points there. Let's just stay with, a couple of years ago in October, we looked at the signs and said, often into January, you can have an outstanding market item like gold and silver in January 1980, and then the Nikkei last trading day of 1989. On this one, we didn't get revved up to that, and noted a little while ago that the usual seasonal strength could be there. They could call it a typical Santa Claus rally, and also, as I mentioned earlier, oftentimes the small caps will outperform the large caps. But that pattern exists into early January. So we're sitting here, I think, on a knife edge. We're going to watch it very closely, but we want the market, before one wants to start employing shorts, we want to have various lines in the sand taken out so that the character begins to change. Now, something interesting going on is that it's a crazy bubble in the financial markets. And this is due to the crazy bubble in the political markets, where the state is in a frenzy of activity, and it, of course, is depreciating the currency as rapidly as it can. Now, historically, I've done some work on this back to ancient Roman times, and what happens with that is you get the political bubble funded by rampant currency depreciation, which drives the financial markets up. then the financial markets become unstable and head south. So what you have here is two bubbles going on. The political bubble. Now, Biden has suddenly said that the federal government can't do anything about COVID. So here is one step down in ambition, and then there could be some other points to watch. So what we're watching for is the craziness in the political bubble to stall out and begin to change, and then somewhere fairly close, the craziness in the financial markets stall out and begin to change. And these can happen fairly close to each other, and if it does happen, man, this is really important stuff, because the last time it happened was in the early 1600s, and there was that had been a century, one of these tyrannical centuries, and best followed, the Reformation is best followed in England, and there was a terrific stock crash, began in 1618. Well, no, you can't call it a stock crash, but a financial credit crisis that began. Now, part of the issue now involves the decay of things in China. So this is what's going on here, is that, and the question involved whether this can get worse in March, probably. But the main thing is that we've had a great financial bubble, and the early warning signs are when outlying countries suddenly discover a loss of liquidity at their central bank. And that began last March with Argentina, South Africa, and Turkey. Then, since then, there's been sporadic headlines about Argentina and Turkey, classic ones. And then also the whole noise about China is that it is a huge credit contraction that has already started. And then as go back to the Roman writer 2,000 years ago, Cicero, who observed that if there was a financial problem in the eastern provinces, that would be the east end of the Mediterranean, Phoenicia, places like that, if there was a financial distress there, it would inevitably hit the financial center in Rome. And there are many examples in the literature of financial disasters in Rome. So the bubble has been completed. They're keeping it alive in New York, but China and other outlying countries are already in a post-bubble contraction. So we're just fascinating to watch how these forces work their way out. And I think it's going to be an interesting year. We're okay on having a positive stock market out to around now. But on the other hand, I've been looking for a seasonal low for crude oil in January or February. And oftentimes that seasonal low for crude oil can be in December, but hey, it ain't happening. They're able to keep speculative, animated spirits alive, but I think they're all on a foundering ship. It's just a very precarious situation. And as I say, you can't start playing the bear side until some of the senior indexes take out critical lows.
We thank our listeners for sending in their questions, Michael and Kathleen, and I hope that you guys just have the best new year ever. We'll have more with Bob Hoye right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Hoye. Some headlines that caught Bob's eyes today as we look forward to New Year's Eve. Goldman leads Wall Street rainmakers in record deal-making year. What kind of deals do they cook up, Bob?
Oh, my God, they've been all kinds of things. Many kinds of financings, from fixed income to equities to everything. It's been a bubble year, and it's continuing. So, it's stock research via headlines, and the headlines are, this one is incredible. It's a good one, so, yeah.
Another headline that caught your attention, oil heads for biggest annual gain since 2016.
Yeah, it's been a good one. And yet, who knows about seasonal forces? Maybe January could still see a setback for good old crude oil, because last summer we wondered if an old seasonal for crude would come in, which would have been a high in late September, early October, which we did have. But as I've said, at the moment, oil's pretty buoyant, and there's nothing you can do about it, but we will still wonder if the old seasonal will come in and we can see some weakness into February. But these things, this is wild markets. Some of these reliable patterns have been distorted a little, but we'll watch and see what happens in here. And again, nobody plays the short side until something distinctive happens.
The debut of active ETFs in the U.S. as investor appetite grows.
There we are. Bull market headline. You know, you've got general investors buying ETFs, Wall Street creating, who knows, hundreds, maybe thousands of them. You got a politician, Nancy Pelosi, and her husband buying puts in a very high market. So, hey, there's no shortage of ebullience out there. Lots of positive vibrations going on.
A headline that caught my eye, Bob. Walmart and other major U.S. corporations consider pulling out of a poorly performing China.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Well, that is actually confirming that Chinese economy is in the contraction already. And why fight a bad weather? And who knows what may happen politically there if the Chinese contraction gets worse, because the communist government has been riding the prosperity wave. And I've read that certain high-up members in the Politburo are personally long. I would agree with that. So, but what you have here is for the first time in history, an authoritarian government promoting the stock market and quite possibly long the stock market, and it is in serious trouble. So we'll just see how far the New York market and some recently bid up commodities can stay firm. So it is, as I said earlier, showed you, I thought maybe I'd like to write something about the market I really enjoy, and looked around, and there's nothing specific you want to write on. We've covered it generally here in the show, and I talked to my colleague Ross, and he said, "Yeah, Bob, there's nothing nothing jumping out at you other than things are buoyant." So,
well, Bob,
we'll watch for change in credit spreads. That's the difference between high grade and low grade bonds. The trend has already changed to widening, which is bad. But the last 6-7 weeks, there's been some narrowing, which is good. The commodities are worth watching. And also the action in the small caps, the Russell 2000, is worth watching as well. So, anyways, there's things to watch, but there could be some drama ahead of us.
And for people who've never seen snow on palm trees, check out Jim Goddard 3 on Twitter. I've posted a number of pictures of the palm trees in New Westminster covered in snow. Very interesting.
Well, yeah, Jim, you were telling me earlier that you're looking out onto the Fraser River, which is a major river in British Columbia. Well, it's one of the major rivers on the West Coast, and you said there's quite a bit of flat pans of ice coming down.
Oh, no, it's mostly ice covered right now, Bob. It's mostly ice.
Yeah, but it's moving ice, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's a tidal river, so I get to see it flow west, and then for a while every day it flows east.
Well, I'm going to go look out my window here because I overlook the north arm of the Fraser and see if there's any ice pans coming this far. We must be you're about 10 miles upriver from where I am, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I'm way up the river, Bob. Sometimes without a paddle. Bob, it's been a great year, and I'm looking forward to the new year with you.
I think we're going to continue to have fun, and I really enjoy the questions from the folks out there in what are we going to call it? Not TV land, not radio land.
It's cyberspace.
In the internet.
Yes, it's cyberspace, space.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Bob.
Okay.
Have a happy new year.
Yep. Bye.
My guest has been market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for chartsandmarkets.com. He was speaking to us from Vancouver. If you have any questions for Bob, he loves to answer them. You can send them to info@housestreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HouseStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Happy New Year.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HouseStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.